Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Cecily as always. I first wanted to start by saying thank you all so much on the really positive response on my last video. It was more of a personal video for me to make, so having all of you be so supportive and willing to comment with your stories and your perspectives on your relationship with food after having chronic pain for years and suffering so much, I just really appreciate that. Now, today's video is going to be kind of fun, I think. It's going to be debunking ostomy myths. So all those things that you may have believed before you got your ostomy surgery, or things that you may have been told by people in your life like, oh, don't get an ostomy, like this will really suck about having an ostomy. We're gonna debunk all of that today and prove why life with an ostomy is actually not so bad. So let's get into it. The first thing to debunk about ostomy myths is that everyone will know that you have an ostomy when you get one. That is definitely not the case. I thought this would be true when I was looking at getting ostomies because I looked at the bags, I looked at where they typically are put, which is right on your tummy, and I was like, oh my god, everyone's gonna see it when I'm wearing like tighter clothes. That's not really actually been my reality. Usually people have no idea that I have an ostomy whatsoever. It's not something that I think is typically easy to see, especially if you're wearing bags that are really flattering to you. My Coloplast bags hug my body really, really well. I find that one-piece systems are typically less bulky and noticeable than two-piece systems, but that's really a subjective opinion. The best I can tell you if you're worried about this myth is that it's a myth. Not everyone is going to notice that you have an ostomy. It's possible that you'll be on the beach one day in a bikini and people maybe will see your bag then, but typically if you're clothed and in public, it's not going to be a talking point. It's not something that people are going to notice and want to necessarily point out to you. So don't be worried about public embarrassment if that's something that's crossed your mind. It definitely crossed mine. Not an issue for me currently, and not an issue for most of the ostomates that I've spoken to personally. I just want to give you guys a little example with me of how difficult it can actually be to spot if someone even has a bag. So you can see here that this is where my bag is. If I point it out to you, you can tell that there's sort of an outline to it, but side profile, it's kind of hard to actually tell that I even have a bag underneath of my clothes. The next myth is a huge one, and one that I was personally really worried about when I was looking at getting an ostomy. That is that all ostomates and ostomy bags smell badly. That is not the case, especially for people who are really good at taking care of their ostomies and their bags and emptying them correctly. Now, I will say this, a really good recommendation that I got from my ostomy nurse for controlling any odor that you might be careful or worried about is to have a lubricating deodorant in your bag. This is the Brava Coloplast line of lubricant. I love it. I find it really nice. You will smell more like dish detergent if you use this than any kind of stool. So that's a really good tip that I've picked up just along the years of having an ostomy. If you're super concerned about odor, or if you just don't like the odor of changing your own bag, go with a deodorant. It'll really help you out in the end. The next myth to talk about is that ostomates can't swim or be involved in water sports or water aerobics. Definitely not the case. Now, will I say that I've definitely had some trepidation when going into a pool? Yes, and I would say that it's probably not advisable to go into a pool if you're just out of surgery. If you just had your ostomy procedure, definitely talk to your doctor before you go into a hot tub or pool. For the most part, your life will be unchanged by having a bag, and as such, you'll be able to go into pools and public swimming areas, even the ocean, without a whole ton of fear. One recommendation I could make for you guys, if you are concerned about leakage in a pool, obviously, I understand that's a scary thing for anyone. No one wants to leak in a pool. You can use the Sure-Seal rings that I had mentioned in previous videos. They're basically just an extra layer of protection that's super waterproof and will ensure that there is no leakage. I use them every day just for my own peace of mind, but they fit around the stoma, they fit around the ostomy bag, and they just ensure that the bag stays really clung to your skin and does not fall off when it's exposed to water. That's a little recommendation recommendation I could make, but honestly, for the most part, I have not met many ostomates who have had like a horrible pool experience. I'm sure it's happened, but as long as you're careful about it, and as long as you're good about making sure that you're using the right adhesive products for you, and you're using the right bag, and it's fitted to you really well, and it's not slipping off anyway, I would say water sports, water aerobics, pool exercises of any type, or just lounging around are perfectly fine with an ostomy. The next myth is a little bit saucy. So the next myth is that you can't have sex or be intimate with an ostomy. It is important, however, to tell your partner or the person that you would like to be physically intimate with, hey, listen, I have an ostomy. Tell them early on. If you're about to get the surgery, let them know that you're interested in getting an ostomy surgery. The reason I say that it's really important to be transparent about this stuff is because in my experience, waiting even a week or two to tell someone, it makes you seem like you're hiding something. Ostomies are nothing to be ashamed of, especially in the realm of sex and intimacy. If an ostomy helps you feel better on a day-to-day basis, your partner should be happy for you that you have one and should be thrilled that it makes your life better. So please, if this is something that worries you, if having sex with an ostomy you think, oh God, I'm doomed to a life of never having intimacy again, that is absolutely not the case. My best recommendation, tell people early on that you have one and that it's something that you can't remove or get rid of at the moment. And two, that you should talk to your ostomy nurse or surgeon about resuming physical intimacy, especially directly after your ostomy surgery. The reason is that they'll usually put a certain amount of weeks or months to wait before you become physically intimate. Just be aware, your ostomy nurse or surgeon may say no to sex within the first few weeks. That's very normal. I was told to wait at least 6 weeks, if not longer, to resume sexual activity after my ostomy operations. That's a very common response from doctors. It by no means means that you won't be able to have physical intimacy for the rest of your life. In fact, ostomates' sexual relationships can be really fulfilling and the same as anyone else. So I would not worry about that little myth if I were you guys. The next myth is a really widely pervasive one. A lot of people think that all ostomies are permanent. Ostomies can be permanent, mine is permanent, and all the ones that I've had in the past were meant to be permanent. Now, if someone has their anus or rectum removed, they'll need to have their ostomy bag for the rest of their life. If they unfortunately lost it to something like colon cancer or rectal cancer or something along those lines, it's tragic, but it's possible that someone would need to keep a bag for the rest of their life under those conditions. It is possible to have an operation of an ostomy undone. You can have the bowel resected and put back where it was before, essentially. People with J pouches often have this done, where the J pouch just bypasses the colon and then it can be undone later, and then the person can resume their normal bowel movements without the bag. The best thing to do here is to just not overgeneralize about ostomies, because they can all be very different and they can happen to people at different points in their lives. So it's not right to assume that every single one of them is a permanent condition by any means. A lot of people get their ostomies reversed and they're able to live perfectly normal lives afterwards. But for people like me, they are permanent, and that's not really an issue. A lot of us find our ostomies to be a huge help to our day-to-day life, so having them being a permanent condition is the best thing we could hope for. The next myth to debunk is that only elderly people get ostomies. Absolutely not. I am 23 years young and I am absolutely not an elderly ostomy. Are most of the people that I meet elderly who have ostomies? Yes, that is the overwhelming majority of people. But it is not the case for everyone, and assuming that only old people get them or that it's like an old person's problem is not really correct. People with young bodies have problems all the time. Just because you're young doesn't make you impervious to physical disease. So yes, people who are young get ostomies all the time. In fact, I have heard of cases where children as young as like 3 and 7 and up get ostomies for whatever reason. So it is wrong to assume that only elderly people get ostomy procedures, because that's just not the case. Final myth to debunk, that ostomates can't participate in physical exercise. In fact, nurses and colorectal surgeons will suggest that ostomates actually remain active and healthy in their lives, because having a good core and having strength in your muscles makes your ostomy less likely to face issues with herniation and prolapse and other problems. So, contrary to popular opinion, as I've learned, this myth is absolutely wrong. Ostomates are encouraged to exercise and to stay active. Where this may have come from is that people like me with ostomies that are sort of vulnerable can be given very strict lifting guidelines. I've been given a 10-pound weight limit for the rest of my life. So no, I'm not going to become a bodybuilder. And most ostomates I am aware of also have weight limits and probably aren't going to be recommended to become extreme bodybuilders, but they can still remain perfectly active just like anyone else. They can still run and swim and do aerobics and do minor weightlifting with weights that are underneath of their weight limit. All this to say, it is wrong to generalize about anyone's condition, especially if you're not familiar with it, and having an ostomy doesn't preclude you from the things that you used to love to do. In fact, for me, it has enabled me to return to things that I used to love, like eating, because removing parts of my bowel that weren't working really gave me more license over my own life. Well, that is all for this video. I really appreciate all of your feedback and the comments. They just light up my day. And I just wanted to come at you with some debunking myth action because I have been thinking about these for a while now. And I looked around the internet and I was like, what are some of the things that people misconceive about ostomies? And these were some of the top results. So I would love to know what you guys think. What myths have you heard that make you just kind of laugh at this point? Because some of them are actually funny. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in my next video. Bye guys! Freya just wanted to say hello. I figured if she was making so much noise in the background, she might as well actually make a little cameo appearance in the video. So say hi, Freya. Okay. Oh god. Ow. Okay, I need to get her nails clipped.